Hello everyone and a very warm welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we are going to learn about IELTS Speaking Test Part 3. In this lesson, we are going to look at the topic of extreme sports. In the previous lesson, I uploaded a video about Part 1 questions on extreme sports. So if you want to have the complete set of Part 1 and Part 3 questions, then I recommend that once you have watched Part 3, you watch the Part 1 video. Now, in this lesson, we are going to look at some questions that the examiner may ask you about extreme sports. We are also going to look at some sample answers, and at the end of this lesson, I'm also going to give you some tips to ensure that you get a very high band in your IELTS speaking test. But before we begin, have you remembered to subscribe to the channel? If you haven't, then please subscribe to the channel and I promise you, you will not regret it. In my channel, did you know that I upload videos on IELTS speaking test, but also I upload videos on IELTS writing, task 1 and task 2. But that's not all. Did you know that in my channel, you can find a lot of videos on vocabulary, grammar, and even videos that will help you to speak English in different situations. Maybe you want to know how to speak English when you're speaking on the phone. Or maybe you want to know how to express yourself in English when you go shopping. I have so many videos in my channel that will help you to do that. Or maybe you just want to develop your vocabulary. You want to learn more words to describe people, to describe teenagers, to describe women, to describe men, to describe your teacher, to describe your boss. I have so many videos about that. Have a look at my playlists and I guarantee you that you will find so many videos that are going to help to improve your level of English. Now, let's get into our lesson. Let's begin with question 1. Which sports are considered to be extreme and why? Which sports are considered to be extreme and why? In that question, the examiner wants you to identify some sports that are considered to be extreme. And then after that, the examiner wants you to explain why some sports are considered to be extreme. Now you can answer that question by saying, sports that are perceived as extreme include parachuting, rock climbing, wakeboarding, surfing, and skydiving. They are considered to be extreme due to the fact that they are not ordinary and doing them comes with potential risks of serious injuries and even death. Sports that are perceived as extreme include parachuting, rock climbing, wakeboarding, surfing, and skydiving. They are considered to be extreme due to the fact that they are not ordinary and doing them comes with potential risks of serious injuries and even death. So in that answer, I have identified, first of all, I identified the sports that are considered to be extreme. They include parachuting, rock climbing, wakeboarding, surfing, and skydiving. After that, I explained why all these sports are regarded as being extreme. They are considered to be extreme due to the fact that they are not ordinary, and doing them comes with potential risks of serious injuries and even death. In that answer, I have underlined for you in red all the vocabulary to be able to speak about that question. So if you look at all the words that I have underlined in red, then you have the vocabulary that you need to be able to answer that question. And the words that I have in blue are linking words. Linking words help you to join your ideas together. They help you to link your ideas together. Now, I have used include, and, due to, and even. Now, there is a word there that I would like to explain in sample answer 1. Sports that are perceived. Perceived is a band 9 word that means considered. Sports that are considered, sports that are regarded. Perceived means regarded. And then the rest of the words are just names of different extreme sports: parachuting, rock climbing, wakeboarding, surfing, skydiving. And then you have words that like they are not ordinary. If something is not ordinary, then it means that it's extreme, it's unusual. So these extreme sports are regarded as being extreme because they are not ordinary. They are unusual. And doing them comes with potential risks. Potential means that there is a chance that you could get seriously injured if you do some of these extreme sports, and you could even die from them. So that's how you answer question 1. You identify the different sports that are considered to be extreme, and then after that, you explain why. Remember to join your ideas together using linking words like I have done with all the words in blue. Okay, let's move on to question 2. Are extreme sports more popular with women or men, and why? Are extreme sports more popular with women or men, and why? In that question, the examiner wants you to explain whether you think extreme sports are more popular with women or men. Do more men do extreme sports compared to women? After that, you need to explain why. Remember, these are part 3 questions. They're a little bit challenging. Now, you can answer that question by saying, generally, I think extreme sports tend to be more popular with men, although there are a few women who do them too. This is because quite often men love adrenaline-filled and risky activities that will challenge them to the maximum. Generally, I think extreme sports tend to be more popular with men, although there are a few women who do them too. This is because quite often men love adrenaline-filled and risky activities that will challenge them to the maximum. So in that answer, I have made it very clear that generally, that is in general, I think, because I'm expressing my opinion. Generally, I think extreme sports tend to be more popular with men, although there are a few women who do them too. And then after that, I explained why. I introduced my reason using the linking word because. This is because quite often men love adrenaline-filled and risky activities that will challenge them to the maximum. So in that answer, I have used a number of linking words, as you can see them in blue. I have used although, because, and, that. And the rest of the words that I've underlined in red are the vocabulary that you need to be able to answer that question. Adrenaline filled. Risky activities. Risky means dangerous. Adrenaline is a hormone that is released in our bodies, especially when we're excited or afraid. Okay? So men love adrenaline filled, that is activities that are full of adrenaline rushes, okay? Adrenaline filled and risky activities that will challenge them to the maximum. Now, let's move on to question 3. Why do people do extreme sports? Why do people do extreme sports? In that question, the examiner wants you to explain, give some reasons why people do extreme sports. Why do certain people like to do extreme sports? What is the motivation behind it? What are the reasons? That's what the examiner wants to know. Now you can answer that question by saying, people do extreme sports to stay fit, challenge, and push themselves out of their comfort zone. Others are adrenaline addicts who get a kick out of the sense of danger associated with such sports. A few of them do it as a bet or for fame. People do extreme sports to stay fit, challenge, and push themselves out of their comfort zone. Others are adrenaline addicts who get a kick out of the sense of danger associated with such sports. A few of them do it as a bet or for fame. So in that answer, I have given so many reasons as to why people do extreme sports. The first reason is to stay fit. Okay, they want to be physically fit. The second reason is because it is challenging. And the third one is to push themselves out of their comfort zone. And the next reason is because some of them are adrenaline addicts. They are addicted to an adrenaline rush. And because of that, when they do the extreme sports, they get a kick out of, okay? They get a kick out of the sense of danger associated with such sports. To get a kick out of something is to get a sense of joy and excitement, okay? A thrill. You get a kick out of something. You get a thrill out of it. You get excited. You get happy. And finally, some of them do it as a bet. Okay, a bet is, for example, if someone says to you, if you're going to parachute, I'm going to give you $50. And so some people do it as a bet, and then some people do it for fame. They want to be famous. As they do some of these extreme activities, they capture them and then they post their videos on social media because they want to become famous. So in that sample answer, all the words that I've underlined in red are the vocabulary that you need to be able to talk about that question. And the words in blue are linking words that will help you to join your ideas together. Now let's move on to question 4. Do you think attitudes to extreme sports have changed in recent years? Do you think attitudes to extreme sports have changed in recent years? In that question, the examiner wants you to explain whether you think, so it's your opinion, do you think people nowadays think differently about extreme sports? Do you think that nowadays people think differently about extreme sports compared to the past? Have people changed their opinions about extreme sports nowadays compared to the past? That's what the question is asking you. It's asking for your opinion. So you can answer that question by saying, most definitely. As a result of social media, people are more inclined to experiment with extreme sports nowadays, unlike in the past when people were terrified of the repercussions. Most definitely. As a result of social media, people are more inclined to experiment with extreme sports nowadays, unlike in the past when people were terrified of the repercussions. So in that answer, I have made it very clear using the words most definitely to confirm that I think very strongly that people's opinions about extreme sports have changed. And I have explained why. It is as a result of social media. People are more inclined. Inclined is a band 9 word that means people are now tempted. They are tempted to experiment with extreme sports. There is a higher chance that because of social media, people posting their films of their extreme sports on social media, when people see those films, then they get tempted to experiment with extreme sports. They get inclined, they get tempted to do it as well. Compared to the past, when people are terrified, to be terrified is to be scared of the repercussions. The repercussions are the side effects, the dangers, okay? Remember, this is a band 9 answer, so I have to try and use advanced vocabulary. So, let's move on to question 5. Should people do extreme sports? Should people do extreme sports? Now, in that question, you're being asked for your opinion, as is very typical in part 3. Most of the times you're being asked to express your opinion about different things. Should people do extreme sports? The examiner wants to know, in your opinion, do you think it is a good idea for people to do extreme sports? It's your opinion, so you can either say yes or no, or both. Now you can answer that question by saying, in my opinion, I think doing extreme sports is rather irresponsible because if you're ill-prepared, it could cost you your life. Nevertheless, if you choose to do them, I think you ought to always wear protective gear. In my opinion, I think that doing extreme sports is rather irresponsible because if you're ill-prepared, it could cost you your life. Nevertheless, if you choose to do them, I think you ought to always wear protective gear. Now, in that answer, I have agreed and disagreed. In my opinion, I have expressed my opinion as to what I think about extreme sports. I think doing extreme sports is rather irresponsible. So I think it's irresponsible, and then I explained why. I introduced my reason using the linking word because. I think that doing extreme sports is rather irresponsible because if you're ill-prepared, to be ill-prepared is when you're not well prepared. Ill-prepared means not well prepared. If you're ill-prepared, that is, if you're not well prepared, it could cost you your life. It could cost you your life, means that you could even die. Okay? If you're ill-prepared, it could cost you your life. If you're not well prepared, you could die. And then I introduced another opinion, which is the opposite of the first opinion, and that's why I use the linking word nevertheless, because I'm contrasting. Nevertheless, if you choose to do them, I think you ought to always wear protective gear. So although I think that doing extreme sports is irresponsible, if you choose to do them, then I think you should always wear protective gear. Protective gear is protective clothing. I discussed that more in part 1. Protective gear, for example, a helmet, gloves, okay? All that is protective gear. Protective gear simply means protective clothing, to protect yourself. For example, when you have a very, very bad fall, so that you don't injure your head, you can wear a helmet. Now, this brings me to the end of the first part of our lesson. In our second part of the lesson, I'm going to give you some tips to ensure that you pass your IELTS speaking test with a very high band. Tip number 1 is ensure that you understand the question. Part 3 questions have a lot to do with you expressing your opinion about things. So make sure you understand the examiner very well. If you don't understand the question, you can always ask the examiner to repeat the question. You can say to the examiner, "Excuse me, could you repeat the question, please? Could you repeat the question, please? Could you repeat the question, please?" So feel free, if you don't understand the question, then ask the examiner to repeat it. That will also give you a chance to kind of think a little bit. And most of the times when you ask the examiner to repeat the question, they may ask you the same question in a different way, in a different manner, that is probably easier for you to understand. So that is tip number 1. Tip number 2, ensure that in each question you provide 2 to 3 or 4 points. Remember, you should elaborate your answers. So do not simply say yes or no. Ensure that you elaborate your answers by giving several points, several ideas for each question. As you can see in my sample answers, I have done exactly that. In the first question, I was asked to identify some examples of extreme sports, and I identified all of them. And then the second part of the question was why. And in that question, I explained why such sports are considered to be extreme. And I used a number of reasons. They are considered to be extreme due to the fact that they are not ordinary, and doing them comes with potential risks of serious injuries and even death. So for each question, make sure that you answer the whole part of the question. Question 1 has 2 parts, so ensure that you answer both of them and use linking words to connect your ideas together. That is the next tip. Use linking words to connect all your ideas together. In my sample answers, I have written all the linking words for you in blue so you can see how to use them. The next tip is ensure that in your answers you use a variety of sentence structures. Use simple, compound, and complex sentences. Now, if you're aiming for band 8 or band 9, then you should use more complex sentences. Now, if you're not familiar with what simple, compound, and complex sentences are, don't worry. I have a video uploaded about that. Just have a look at my playlist, okay? And you will find a video about the 3 different types of sentences in English. That video will explain exactly how to formulate or construct those types of sentences. But for the sake of this lesson, a simple sentence has 1 verb. A compound sentence has 2 verbs, two verbs, which means it has one linking word. Now, a complex sentence has three or more verbs, and that means that a complex sentence has two or more linking words. For example, the second sample answer: generally, I think extreme sports tend to be more popular with men, although there are a few women who do them too. That is a compound sentence. This is because quite often men love adrenaline-filled and risky activities that will challenge them to the maximum. That is a complex sentence. In sample answer 1, the second sentence, they are considered to be extreme due to the fact that they are not ordinary, and doing them comes with potential risks of serious injuries and even death. That is a complex sentence, okay? So if you're aiming for a band 9 or a band 8, then you're expected to use more complex sentences, which means that you should use two or more linking words in your answers. Now, let's move on to the next tip, and the next tip is that ensure that you have the correct vocabulary for the topic that you're talking about. In this lesson, I have underlined for you all the vocabulary that you need to talk about extreme sports. And like I said earlier on, have a look at my previous video on IELTS Speaking Test Part 1, Extreme Sports. There you will find even more vocabulary. Okay, so once you have watched both videos, then you're guaranteed that when you get that question during your IELTS speaking test, you will be confident to be able to answer that question because you have the vocabulary. Now, the next tip that is extremely important is that you use the correct tense when you're giving your answers. Actually, that is the most important of them all that determines your band. The band that you get is determined by your grammar. It is determined by your grammar. Now, if you speak broken English, then there is a chance that you will not score beyond band 5. What does it mean to speak broken English? It means, for example, your singular and plural is not correct. You have poor subject-verb agreement. You are using prepositions incorrectly, okay? Your sentence structures are not correct. All that is grammar. If you have, if for example, you're answering the questions using the wrong tense, then that is also marked in your grammar. Now, if you're not confident in your grammar, do not worry at all. I have a whole playlist about grammar. In fact, I even have a playlist about the 13 tenses that we have in English. That playlist makes it so easy for you to understand the tenses in grammar because I explain to you the rules in a very simplified form, and I even give you examples. So have a look at my playlist on grammar, or simply have a look at my playlist on tenses in English, and you will develop a lot of confidence from that because you will be able to use that not only for your speaking test but also for your writing test, and also in your day-to-day life. Once you have passed your IELTS tests, then you also want to make sure that you're not speaking broken English. So I recommend that you watch that playlist on tenses in English. Now, the next tip is ensure that you use intonation when you're speaking. What is intonation? Intonation simply means raise and lower your voice depending on what it is that you're saying. When you want to emphasize something, for example, when you're saying most definitely, raise your voice. You use intonation in your mother tongue, so use it also during your IELTS speaking test. And the final tip that I would give you is that work on your fluency. Working on your fluency does not mean that you are not allowed to speak English with an accent. That is not a problem. Your accent will not affect your band. It will only affect your band if the examiner cannot understand you because of your accent. So work on your fluency. And how do you improve your fluency? You improve your fluency by actually speaking, saying, like for example, read the questions, read the sample answers aloud. Keep repeating them, keep repeating them. And as you do that, your tongue will continue to loosen up and your speed will increase, okay? And before you know it, your fluency has improved. So you improve your fluency through practice. Now, this brings me to the last section of this lesson where I'm going to read for you the questions and the sample answers. Are you ready? Okay, let's begin. Question 1. Which sports are considered to be extreme? Why? Sports that are perceived as extreme include parachuting, rock climbing, wakeboarding, surfing, and skydiving. They are considered to be extreme due to the fact that they are not ordinary and doing them comes with potential risks of serious injuries and even death. Question 2. Are extreme sports more popular with women or men? Why? Generally, I think extreme sports tend to be more popular with men, although there are few women who do them too. This is because quite often men love adrenaline-filled and risky activities that will challenge them to the maximum. Question 3. Why do people do extreme sports? People do extreme sports to stay fit, challenge and push themselves out of their comfort zone. Others are adrenaline addicts who get a kick out of the sense of danger associated with such sports. A few of them do it excuse me. A few of them do it as a bet or for fame. People do extreme sports to stay fit, challenge and push themselves out of their comfort zone. Others are adrenaline addicts who get a kick out of the sense of danger associated with such sports. A few of them do it as a bet or for fame. Question 4. Do you think attitudes to extreme sports have changed in recent years? Most definitely. As a result of social media, people are more inclined to experiment with extreme sports nowadays, unlike in the past, when people were terrified of the repercussions. Question 5. Should people do extreme sports? In my opinion, I think that doing extreme sports is rather irresponsible because if you're ill-prepared, it could cost you your life. Nevertheless, if you choose to do them, I think you ought to always wear protective gear. So there you are. That's how you answer those questions and that's how you pronounce the sample answers. Have you found this lesson helpful? Have you learned anything new from this lesson? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then please give me a thumbs up. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more videos. I will be uploading plenty of videos on IELTS speaking, writing, and also videos on vocabulary, grammar, and speaking English in different situations. So if you want to improve your level of English, then you know what to do. Subscribe to this channel, turn your notification bell on, and you're good to go. Now, thank you very much for your time. Remember to give me a thumbs up and share this video on all your social media platforms. Now, thank you very much and see you in our next lesson. Bye-bye.